So I am going to talk a little bit here about our next presenter, and that is Erik Shicotte. He says he was a passive enthusiast growing up. Erik Shicotte picked up his first DSLR camera in 2012. As Merle Haggard sang, that old rambling fever has been part of him his entire life, as has country music. Work in construction and playing music from the stage to tall steel, Erik has spent the better portion of the last 3 years in motion, mostly in the Western US, shooting what he can along the way. Over the summer of 2021, Erik released his debut EP, Misery Pacific, under Shooter Jennings' record label, the title track of which is heavily railroad inspired. In September, he was in Los Angeles doing some work for the record label, and given his propensities for travel and trains and the unbeaten path, he decided to take the very long way back home to the Milwaukee area and spend some time on the high plains of the Dakotas. As if you look on a map, it's not exactly a beeline through the Dakotas back to Milwaukee. Here's an interesting fact. To commemorate the appearance of the release of Misery Pacific, that EP, Erik tattooed the iconic Screaming Eagle, the Missouri Pacific Screaming Eagle, on his left arm. Maybe he'll show that to you. Also, I will want to point out here, if we have enough time at the end of the meeting, after we close, we'll play a music video from Erik, if that's okay with Erik. Is that okay with Erik?
You're gonna do what you're gonna do, Mike.
Will do. All right, so do your screen share thing, and everybody give a warm welcome to Erik Shicotte.
Beautiful. So after shooting my way out of California, I made my way by October 1st. I was on the high plains of the Dakotas, and this show is basically the, I think, 11 or 12 trains I saw that month. And we start at Lunds Valley, North Dakota, on the ex-Great Northern Grenora branch, which is a stub-ended, previously almost 90-mile subdivision off of the northern transcon. And over the summer of 21, it was used to store, I believe it was 17 unit grain trains. And as fall rolled around, they started sending power up to start pulling those trains to go back into seasonal rotation. So here's a set of engines picking up some cars at Lunds Valley. I think this was an 112 car train that they were bringing out of Lunds Valley. You can see the old ancient wooden elevators there, and they had a number of problems doing this on this particular day. So just on foot, I was able to relocate for 3 different angles from the same position practically. And after exiting Lunds Valley, they make their way further down into Kittleson Slough, and we'll see Kittleson Slough come back shortly. And out of Kittleson Slough, they start climbing towards Lostwood. This is on the grade, and I think they reach a maximum, it's over 1% in some stretches. But here they are coming up to the top of the grade, and here they are topping it. And you can see the ebb and the flow of so many Midwestern branch lines that just had to follow the way of the earth across the landscape. Further down, we're just south of the quote unquote community of Wisc. There's nothing indicating that it's a town, just a name on a map, as they come down out of Lostwood before they climb to Stanley. The remaining portion of the line that is in service, quote unquote, is from Stanley, North Dakota to Powers Lake, and that's as far as the rail goes, and that's the stretch they've been using to store things. One and final shot from this day of them crossing Old Highway 2, and then that afternoon, we would fortunately, me and the guys I happened to run into out there, we found a well-timed DMVW coal train that had loaded at Falkirk and was making their way for Spiritwood. Here they are just south of Baldwin with a 50F and a 60F. And we followed them for as long as we could. And fortunately, the clouds happened to play nice and give us some nice backgrounds. That was Baldwin, and this is just south of Baldwin. Those trains are really something to see with those silver cars with their white covers. It makes for a really stark contrast against the plains. And being that it was October, we did even find a couple of trees that were cooperative. And these are the last two frames just north of Bismarck. And we took my Toyota way out into this field to try and find some new angles. But the next morning, it was back up to the Grenora branch for another stored car move. They were grabbing, I think this was the fourth or third to last train they would grab. But before that, there was a job out of Minot that went west and then turned back east. This is them approaching Stanley and exiting Stanley. And if you can see the signals around the rear of the train, that protects a control point. And right off to the right is the Y that leads to the Grenora sub. And you can see the nice blue sky here. But by the time the Grenora sub action was happening, a wildfire in Montana had thrown its smoke down over us. So the sun was still out, but we got some nice moody atmosphere as they started to get their day together and move down the Grenora subdivision. Here we are at Lunds Valley again with the old wooden elevators and the train approaching in the distance, and had to do the shot of the power passing it. We would have gotten it to the day before, but about 4 car lengths were the difference of where the previous day's train had to be picked up and where this one would have ended up. And here we are at Kittleson's Slough again. A little more timely scouting led off the highway to a nice vantage point where you can really see them out on the causeway. And then one more way down, or no, here we are, still climbing the hill up to Lostwood. Still climbing the hill up to Lostwood. And then south of Wisc again, we saw frames from the right side of this shot. I was standing on the hill the day prior, and this one, you can see the end of the train coming down the hill out of Lostwood, while the head end is already climbing out of Wisc. And then 2 weeks later, I find myself in South Dakota with some dear friends of mine, and we're in Sioux Falls as a very early cyclone departs the yard, and we would have chased this guy, but off to the left, we're sitting these guys waiting to go through town once the BN cleared up. But didn't spend too much time with the Ellison Eastern because the big target that day was the Dakota and Iowa. And here's their big loaded rock train, their big road train headed south out of Del Rapids with 4 SDs and 1 Jeep. We'd follow them for the remainder of the day. Here's south of Baltic. They had a very large train this day with riprap, Gons on the head end, then their normal cars, and a loaded Herzog train on the rear. About to cross under I-90, over Sioux Falls proper, and climbing the hill out of Sioux Falls. This is on the BNSF now as they head for Canton. And then here we are far south of Canton. We're back on DNI property, so to speak. And we're on the Iowa side of the river. They'll cross the river, I want to say it's 8 times total, maybe 9 on their entire trek, but especially south of Sioux Falls, they just play with the border the entire time. And this shot, we're actually standing on the South Dakota side over the Big Sioux, looking into Iowa as the train is about to turn and do the same. Here we are at Hudson, South Dakota, splitting the nice array of elevators in town. They actually serve a couple of industries near Hudson. And one last shot with Hudson off to the right in the background as they head for another border crossing in Hawarden, Iowa. The next morning, we're in Presho, South Dakota on the ancient Milwaukee Road with a pair of light engines waiting for a crew. The charge this day would be to go west on the almost out of service track west of Presho to the Red Board, where there were some storage cars still remaining at the very end of the serviceable Milwaukee Road to Rapid City. Watco is optimistic now that they've taken over. This is, of course, the artist formerly known as the Dakota Southern Railway. And it sounds like they've got some goals to keep expanding and keep trying to push further and draw more business on the line. Here they are finally tying onto the train for the day. you'll see in the next shot that it took us a while to get that to happen, as evidenced right here. Here's some torn up earth. They had some wide gauge and had to wait for MOW to get out there before they could even get to the cars. But here they are, headlights on their pair of SDs that they have now are both lit by LED headlights, which was my first experience with those personally. But a nice long train of all ex-Burlington Northern Colgons. And this chase would only last maybe 4 miles, and it was all done at walking speed. This shot and the ones coming were all the same location, all achieved by walking. So started down this road and ran down to near the crossing, shot him through the fence. And here is you looking right down the rail. They're still just creeping along. There's an incredulous horse off in the field to the right. And you can see the condition of the rail here. This is all 1906. I believe it was 65-pound rail through here. And the gentleman who owns this property right off to the right there, he's grown up there his whole life, and he was telling stories that his grandpappy remembered when, or maybe it was his father, when the Milwaukee built through west of Precio in 1906. And here they are just ambling along, nice across the field shot. And my favorite shot probably of the whole year is this one with all the grackles and cowbirds taken to the air at the disturbance of a train. You can see the headlights of a high railer following very closely to the rear of the train. And the Ringneck and Western's pair of SDs doing the honors. They've got ex-Utah Southern SD40-2 and an ex-UP SD40T-2. And you can tell, if you don't want to look at the track condition itself, you can look at the cars to see how bad it is, because they're all just wanging all sorts of different directions here. Here we are again on a hillside. This is almost to the end of their day. They only drag these cars about 4 miles from the red board to the west side of Precio to make them easier to get to, because the rumor at the time was, what we heard from the crew, that they would start piecemealing the train out and getting it east. And then from there, the next day, it was off to RCP and land. Here we are at Sturgis, which with the only sunny shot we'd get of the downbound bell turn this particular day. And we tried our best, but it was still cloudy at Rapid City when they turned to go back to Belfouche. But somehow at Sturgis, once again, the sun popped. And one of my favorite things about the American West is it's a place where you can really combine seasons. If we'd have been here, I think it was a week or a week and a half prior, we would have gotten these shots with fall colors on the trees and 1.5 feet of snow on the ground. But the Bell train and the entirety of the RCP&E is a high priority target in my book. They're just fun to shoot and watch and follow, and something about the Dakotas in particular really holds a special spot in my heart. My boots feel right on the ground out there. But taking a big risk and on a hope and a prayer, next day we went to Wyoming, and this is a little bit of something that isn't the plains. This is the East Local out of Grable on the old CB&Q. This is the Casper sub, and this train will handle the business from Grable down to wherever the last customer will be. And oftentimes it's not, but this particular day it was Bonneville, which is above, or I should say technically below the Wind River Canyon. So that means this train would be going up the Wind River Canyon, which is a hard task to get anything that isn't a General Electric going up that canyon. And here we are at the top end of Thermopolis as they come along the Bighorn River. And entering the canyon, this is at the Wedding of Waters. There's a pair of Canadian geese landing after being disturbed. This is where the Wind River changes names to the Bighorn River for the remainder of its flow to the Yellowstone. And then deeper up the canyon, we're this is somewhere near Dornick, I want to say, and you'll observe that this boulder came from over here and is about the size of 2 locomotives. So that tells you, this is, we saw Lindgren's wonderful shots of Colorado, but there's something about the West and just the pure power of nature and man's desperate bid to conquer it and get through it that really captures the imagination. And here they are going through one of the tunnels as they come into the Narrows. and working their way up towards the Boysen Dam, which is just off to the left over here. And there's a tunnel bore not too far from where I'm standing, and that will take them from below water level of the Boysen Reservoir to above water level of the Boysen Reservoir. This would be our final shot of this train as they made their way with their 4 little cars off to Bonneville to interchange with the Bighorn Divide and Wyoming. There's some goofy little short line out of Bonneville, and I cannot quite remember its name. But that's where they were bound today, and we made our way back into the canyon where a Laurel Denver manifest was snaking its way through. And here they are again near Dornick, just a little further up the curve. There, that big boulder is somewhere back there. And that tunnel I had just talked about that takes it from under the Boysen Reservoir to above is right here. You'll notice a stark difference in landscape between the two. Here it almost looks a bit desertous, and down in the canyon you've got all sorts of ground cover. But the Wind River Canyon is definitely a special place. I spent 6 months on a job out of Thermopolis, and I fell in love with the state of Wyoming. And if you haven't tried it, yeah, it's a whole lot of nothing, but that's the good part. I would strongly recommend. The next day, we were going to try and do the Bell Train again, but after waking up in time to catch them and not catching them and still not catching them, and by the time it's 11 a.m., we're a little confused, and come to find out, they were annulled that day for a surfacing project. So we started heading east back across South Dakota on our way back to Wisconsin, and happened to find out that there was going to be some PRC happenings on the RCP and E. Here's the eastbound, almost to JC siding where they'd make their meet. And from the other side of that same little hillside, this is the westbound departing. JC is just off to the right here. The Bad River Valley is another one of those places that is just absolutely mystifying. Here we are at Van Meter as the train slowly creeps its way west. You can see that this old piece of Northwestern is really subject to the wares of geology and geography. This area is mostly soft clay, and despite many attempts over the years by the Northwestern and the CP and now the RCP and E, or how could I forget the DM and E in there? They own that from 86 to 08, I believe, was their existence. But many attempts have been made to shore up this railroad and make it faster, but the earth just keeps sucking it back down into itself. But here we are somewhere near the ghost town of Capa, with the 3471 being one of the ex-Norfolk Southern engines that they had just gotten. The NS got them in like 2015 off the BN and then turned around and sold them almost seemingly immediately. And this one finds new life hauling bentonite clay out in the middle of nowhere, but she was fresh and clean and looking sharp as she led this westbound train. Here we are working our way along, and we see them. This is approaching Midland. There's only a few little actual communities between Crew Point of Pier and Crew Point of Phillip. And Midland is about the only real town they go through between the 2 points. This is on the outskirts of Midland. And to finish it all off, this has to be another one of my favorite shots of the year. This is we forewent a couple of other photos to go scout out Nolan, which is a quote unquote town along the PRC. You can see Midland still in the background. That's what that silo is right there. That's the community of Midland. And here was our final and parting shot of the West train as they slowly ambled along at a blistering pace of 10 miles per hour amongst the golden light and fall colors. And that's about all I got for y'all.
Erik Shicotte, everybody, give him a round of applause. Thank you, Erik. Awesome stuff. Anybody have anything for Erik? Questions, comments?
I'd like to congratulate Erik and all the other presenters for some excellent photography.
Thank you.
I love the wide open spaces, as you can tell. I love them too. So
Don't fence me in.
Hey, that railroad, was it the Dakota and Iowa that had the black and yellow paint scheme and all
Yeah.
the riprap?
Yep.
Do they run daily, do you know, or,
I want to say they're 5 or 6 days a week, but they don't run as often in the winter because it's a quarry. It's a rock-based operation.
okay, I'm gonna have to put that one on my bucket list.
And they run from Del Rapids, which is north of Sioux Falls, through Sioux Falls, and then down to the BN just west of Sioux City, and that's where they get on to go into Sioux City. And yeah, they do that, I'm pretty sure, almost every day of the week. Last I heard from someone that worked there, it was 5 to 6 days a week.
Cool, thanks.
Awesome. Awesome there, Eric. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff. So, Eric is fond of the saying that I had heard from a wise person many, many, many years ago, that there's just two kinds of music, country and Western, and he's bringing it to you there, you guys. So,
Oh man.
well, once again, thank you all to all of our presenters tonight for putting on a really fantastic evening of entertainment. Thank you guys from the bottom of our hearts. The folks here at the Wisconsin chapter NRHS, thank you for all of your effort and your desire to share it with us. For those who are not yet members, please go to our website, www.nrhswis.org, and join. And you can join Manfred Lorenz from Germany, who became the newest member of the Wisconsin chapter, our first member from Germany. He's with us tonight. Manfred, thank you for putting your money where your mouth is too. Thank you for joining. So thank you all for your participation tonight.
Mike,
Yes.
Mike, thank you for taking the time and trouble for organizing this for us.
Well, you're welcome, Ed, and all. I appreciate it. It's sort of a mission. We know that there's some wonderful photographers out there. They're doing some fantastic work, and this is just one way of exposing their work to you. So thank you for being there in the audience tonight. So you guys put up with the new Zoom registration. You got that all behind you. Thank you for making it work tonight. Remember, March 4th, our presentation by Alan Freed on the weed route. And then March 23rd, Stefan Loeb from Watco will be talking about the ringneck and Western. Well, he probably will for Eric, and he'll be talking about the Fox Valley and Lake Superior and Wisconsin and Southern and their new expanded footprint in Wisconsin. So got a lot going on, and thank you all for participating tonight.